Hey, scholars! Hope you're doing well. We're moving on to chapter 8. The Chinese workers are on strike, and Winnie ran into Lee while she was riding Handsome, the horse, and found out that Mr. Crocker, the head of all of the railroad, is not allowing their food to be delivered, even though he cut off supply to their food, even though they pay for their own food. Seems pretty unfair. So he's trying to starve them out. And Lee was really hungry and ate the apple that was meant for the horse. So let's move on and see what's going to happen next. The next morning, Eli Tucker, prowling around his room, Marjorie watched him from the chair by the window. Eli, you're as itchy as a bear in a briar patch. I can't help myself. It's the strike, Marjorie. I hate this feeling. My hands are tied. Do you think it'll last much longer? Eli shrugged. The Celestials want more money and a shorter workday. I doubt they'll get much. Maybe Crocker will throw them a bone. What do you think they'll do? Asked Marjorie. They're caught between but they're caught and between, Eli admitted. Poor devils. I don't know that they have much choice. He looked under a pillow. Where are those muffins? He muttered. Muffins, said Marjorie. Yes, muffins, he repeated. Mrs. Swanson's gave me a few yesterday. They were wrapped in a napkin. I think Winnie has them. She went out for a ride. He frowned. You say she took all the muffins? She's a growing girl. Besides, you had breakfast. Tell me, Eli, is it true that Mr. Crocker has cut off the Chinese food supplies? Where'd you hear that? Cisco has big ears for such small town. Is it true? He nodded. Nothing to do with me, of course, but nothing I could do about it either. I don't approve, though, if that's what you're wondering. He cleared his throat. Where did Winnie go anyway? She went riding on Handsome. This early? Well, I hope she's got sense enough to stay away from the tracks. Tempers are getting short. No telling what might happen. At the moment, nothing was happening to Winnie. She was sitting under a tree by the trestle bridge. The sun was rising in the sky, and Lee was nowhere in sight. Winnie yawned. She had not slept well. Some new men had come in late. They tromped up the stairs, laughing and talking. She could hear them as they passed in the hall. They think they can wait us out, said one. We'll teach 'em a lesson, said the other. A few cracked heads is something they'll understand. Winnie sighed and took out her sketch pad. Us and them. Was this some kind of game? Was she supposed to be on the railroad side because of her father? Or because she wasn't Chinese? Over here, Lee, she shouted as he appeared on the ridge. Lee came forward slowly. Twice he looked back over his shoulder. I'm sorry to be late. There was a meeting. I wanted to hear what was said. This Mr. Crocker is a hard man. He has spoken very plain. If we do not return to work by Monday, he will act. Winnie nodded. I know. My father says Crocker will fine you for keeping his other men and equipment idle. She paused. He's used to getting his way, I think. Well, let's not talk about that for now. I brought you some muffins. And more apples. And a sandwich, too. Mrs. Swanson made it for me. She indicated the sack at her side. Help yourself. Lee examined the contents. There is too much here, he protested. You will eat too? Oh, I had a big breakfast, Winnie lied. You go ahead. Lee bit into a corn muffin. Very good, he said. Winnie looked relieved. I didn't know what you liked, she admitted. I like salted cabbage, dried seaweed, bamboo sprouts, and mushrooms, said Lee. We didn't have any vegetables or cuttlefish. I don't like vegetables very much. The Americans, the way Americans cook them, I do not like them either. But I eat other things too. He turned his head. Did you hear that? Hear what? Lee frowned. Perhaps it's nothing. But three men were talking not far behind me. They moved as I moved. They were carrying clubs. Oh. I tried to run ahead and hide my way. I do not know if I succeeded. I do not hear anything now, said Winnie. You said you went to a meeting this morning. Did it go well? Not so good, I think. Many workers are angry. They came to this country to make money. It is money they want to take home. Home. Winnie was surprised. You mean back to China? Lee nodded. Most who come do not wish to stay. The ones who do not gamble can save $20 a month. That is a lot of money in China. My father always planned to return home to Guangdong province. I'll have to look that up and tell you next chapter how that's pronounced. Province. And buy a farm. Winnie could not imagine leaving her own country to find work and then to go back afterwards. The Chinese must love their country so much to do that. And your mother came with him? She asked. No, no, said Lee. It is not a trip for women. He met my mother here in San Francisco. All the time Lee had been talking, Winnie had been sketching. She always had trouble doing people because they moved too much. But Lee remained still while he spoke. What are you doing? He asked. Winnie blushed. Just drawing. Lee got up to take a look. That is me, he cried. He touched the paper gently. I'm glad you think so, said Winnie. Would you like to have it? Lee looked surprised. To keep? It would be a special gift. He paused. I do not have anything for you in return. That's all right. I like to give away my drawings. They both heard the twigs crack. Quick, Winnie whispered, behind the trestles. What about you? Whispered Lee. Don't worry, she said. It's not me they want. Winnie started sketching quickly as the men came over the ridge. They stopped at the sight of her. Hey, what are you doing there? Just drawing, said Winnie. She held up her drawing paper. Why, is something wrong? We were following one of those Chinese boys. He got loose from their camp. Yeah, said another, shouldering his club. We wanted to make sure he didn't get into any trouble. Winnie recognized their voices. These were the men she had heard on the stairway. You seen anyone hereabouts? Winnie scratched her head. I did hear a noise off to the left there. Much obliged, said the third man, tipping his hat. If you see anyone, though, just holler. They turned off the path and scrambled down the hill. Winnie waited 2 full minutes, barely daring to breathe. Then she walked up to the ridge for a look. They're gone now, she said. Lee emerged from the shadows. He brushed the dirt from his pants. I owe you so much, he said. Let's call it even, said Winnie. After all, I'm the reason you're here in the first place. She let out a long breath. But maybe we should get going. If you like, we can meet somewhere else tomorrow. Maybe closer to your camp? Lee sighed. I do not think so, he said. It could be dangerous for you. He grinned abruptly. And for me, too. But thank you, Winnie Tucker. This is a morning I will never forget. I like their friendship. Super sweet. Okay, we'll be moving on to chapter 9 next. See ya soon. Bye, scholars.